Ignatius. He steps back. Here comes the blitz. Pitches to Thompson. Thompson will not get it. He's at the 5. We're going to run out of time. They need to set up and kick a field goal. They don't have any timeouts left. They're running onto the field. 3 seconds. 2, 1. St. Ignatius has won the state championship 10-7.
From the foundation of their dramatic triumph in the '88 state title game, the Ignatius Wildcats set out in the summer heat to repeat their efforts. Through a record-setting regular season and a playoff campaign filled with a who's who of Ohio's football finest, the Wildcats achieved their goal of back-to-back state championships. Continued excellence takes a rare kind of dedication, a trait found in abundance with this year's team. The 1989 St. Ignatius Wildcats, something very special. The legend continues. The 1989 season opened with great expectations against Mentor, and a 43-2 romp over the Cardinals did little to change that. But week number 2 would be much different. Another battle with the Euclid Panthers, this time with added significance. The game would be the first ever national telecast of high school football by Sports Channel America. Euclid would try and break out early behind their talented tailback, Robert Smith. But the Wildcat defense shut things down at midfield. Backed up in their own territory, Ignatius fumbles, and Euclid takes advantage to grab an early lead. Then it was the Panthers' turn to lose the football. And Tim Kennedy's fumble recovery helps to set up a Joe Pickens to Pat Friend touchdown toss. In the second quarter, the Cats take the lead as a great line surge helps power Peter Fitzpatrick into the end zone. Next, the defense gets involved in the scoring. Matt Cooney strips away the football, and Ryan Spicer rambles in for the 3rd score of the night. After Euclid narrowed the gap to a touchdown, Joe Pickens executes the 2-minute offense perfectly. A 4-play, 75-yard drive is capped off by a Tim Kennedy blast, and Ignatius is in control. The second half was all Wildcats. The defense dominated, and the offense dazzled. Kareem Ingram and the defense contained Robert Smith until the game was out of reach. While for the second straight week, Mark Ruddy scored a pair of touchdowns on both sides of the football. Pete Fitzpatrick ended the night with more than 100 yards rushing on this touchdown effort, while the defense put the finishing touch to the 55-26 triumph on junior defensive tackle Jamie Joyner's fumble return for a score. With most of the skill players returning, the Wildcat offense figured to be a group with plenty of weapons. And throughout the '89 campaign, a high-powered attack put more than 31 points a game on the scoreboard. Up front, the offensive line excelled. Whether it was protecting the quarterback or blowing people off the ball, seniors Casey Baker, Nick Muzacek, and Jim Pellegrino, junior Trent Zinkowitz, and sophomore Juan Porter dominated the line of scrimmage. At tailback, Pete Fitzpatrick took advantage of the holes the line opened by rushing for more than 1,000 yards for a second straight season. Pete possesses great running strength despite being just 5'9" and 175 pounds, And when clutch yardage was needed, Pete always found the way to deliver. Fullback Paul Zachlin was an unsung hero, providing great blocking and almost 5 yards a carry until Paul was felled by a knee injury in the playoffs. And Tim Kennedy and Brian Spear were there to step in when injuries hit the backfield. The Wildcats also had a devastating aerial attack thanks to the best trio of receivers to ever wear the blue and gold. Number 89, tight end John Jakin, set a school record with 11 touchdown catches. While Mark Ruddy and Pat Friend made the spectacular seem easy on the way to 67 receptions and nearly 1,300 yards. All-American quarterback Joe Pickens tied it all together. Despite shoulder and ankle injuries that hampered him in the second half of the season, Joe again topped the 2,000-yard mark in passing. And he was responsible for 23 touchdowns. Great names have played quarterback for St. Ignatius: Forrestal, Dowling, Kubacki, Luck, and others. But in number 12, we might have seen the best of them all. The game with the eventual Division II state champion St. Joe's Vikings was another major obstacle in the regular season for the Wildcats. Ignatius broke out first behind the pass receiving of Pete Fitzpatrick. And a touchdown run from quarterback Joe Pickens. With the score 7-6 in the second period, a great catch by tight end John Jakin, and another Pickens run helps to set up a Pete Fitzpatrick score to give the Wildcats a 14-6 halftime edge. The defense did a marvelous job in containing the Vikings' power game. Here in the third period, Pat Friend's effort sets up a 24-yard Graham Hearns field goal and a 17-6 Wildcat lead. Then St. Joe's began to control the clock, but the defense was brilliant in thwarting every St. Joe's effort. Looking to put the game away, the Wildcats put the ball in Pete Fitzpatrick's hands 6 straight times. 80 yards down the field behind that fine offensive line and little number 15. The final carry was a 51-yard beauty to seal the 23-6 triumph. A question in the preseason was how good would the Ignatius defenders be with only 3 starters back from last year's fine squad? Well, the answer in 1989 was that the Wildcat defense was a knockout.
Boom, boom, right here. Boom, boom, what is it? Boom, boom, come on. Now, kid, I'm ready to fight. If I get a ring by sight, boom, boom, one more. Take it home.
From Menor to Moeller, the D made the big plays when needed. Senior defensive ends Mike Zdanek and Matt Cooney joined junior defensive tackles Trent Zinkowitz and Jamie Joyner to form an imposing front wall. Tim Kennedy, Kareem Ingram, Brian Spear, and Ryan Spicer were the kiss of death linebackers, as good a quartet as has ever played at Ignatius. First-team All-Stater Mark Ruddy paced the secondary with 6 interceptions, 2 of them for touchdowns. Junior Tom Stringer also had 6 pickoffs, including 3 versus Benedictine. Senior safety Mike Reale rounded out the group of aerial thieves. Wildcat defense, tough, quick, and opportunistic. One way or another, they're going to get you. A second straight perfect regular season resulted in numerous awards for the Wildcats. The Associated Press again selected St. Ignatius as the top team in their statewide poll. The Plain Dealer and the area Sun newspapers chose the Wildcats as the best team in the area. Joe Pickens, John Jakin, and Mark Ruddy were honored as first-team All-Staters, and they were joined by teammates Kareem Ingram, Pete Fitzpatrick, and Trent Sinkowitz on the All-Scholastic squad. The playoffs would pick up the tempo for the Wildcats right from their first encounter. Ignatius drew Warren Western Reserve as its first opponent, the only other unbeaten Division I team in the state. The contact in this game would be unbelievable. Defense dominated from the outset, stymieing 2 of the top quarterbacks in the country, according to college scouts. The Wildcat D drew first blood, sacking reserves Jermaine Richardson for a safety. On the drive following the free kick, Ignatius quarterback Joe Pickens takes a ground approach to move the offense in close. From there, it was to the air, and John Jakin for a 9-0 Ignatius lead. But Reserve closed to within 2 points after 2 periods of play. And in the third quarter, the Warrior defense and poor field position bottled up the Ignatius attack. Fortunately, the Wildcat defense remained relentless. Finally, in the fourth period, a reverse by Pat Friend ignites the offense. Some strong running by Pete Fitzpatrick. And another Pickens to Jakin connection pushes the ball deep into Western Reserve territory. Senior fullback Paul Zacklin caps the drive, blasting in from the 1. A pad-popping, nail-biting battle. The playoffs would indeed be a formidable task for the defending champions. That was made abundantly clear 1 week later in the final tussle with Euclid. With the surprise of having Robert Smith at quarterback, Euclid drives on the opening series only to be stopped at the goal line. The Wildcats give up a safety, and on the ensuing free kick, disaster strikes. Robert Smith's 67-yard touchdown return puts Ignatius down 9-0. But the offense responds with 2 solid drives. A Pete Fitzpatrick plunge gives the Wildcats their first score. Then two fine catches by wide receivers Mark Ruddy and Pat Friend. Set up another Fitzpatrick score, this time a touchdown toss from Joe Pickens. The Wildcat D adjusted to the new offensive look from the Euclid Panthers. But a last-minute bomb enables Euclid to take a 16-13 halftime edge. The final 24 minutes of this game would be played at a frantic pace. Tim Kennedy's return of the opening kickoff of the second half gave a foreshadowing of later heroics. Joe Pickens and Pat Friend combined to put Ignatius back on top early in the third quarter. The defense is cooking and things look good for the Wildcats. But good things never come easily. Two mistakes are converted into Euclid scores. If the Cats are to repeat, the time to answer the challenge is now. Tim Kennedy's 85-yard score revives the Wildcats and their fans. The defense forces Euclid to give up the football. But it's 3rd and 19. The Cats need a miracle. As we watch again the Ignatius version of the Immaculate Reception, you realize the idea of never giving up could not be better exemplified than by this John Jakin effort. Now a group of young men who simply refuse to lose sense another Wildcat victory. Pete Fitzpatrick picks up a crucial first down, and now there's no stopping Ignatius. The 31-30 triumph, an incredible 4th straight over a terrific Euclid team, will rank as one of the all-time greats in Ignatius history. Still, the Cats were only halfway up the mountain. One more burden was added for the Wildcats while they practiced in Lakewood for the state semifinals. USA Today proclaimed Ignatius #1 in the country as they prepared to face the biggest name in Ohio high school football, the Massillon Tigers.
Yeah, I think we're ready for that. It shouldn't, once you get out of the field, all that stuff doesn't matter. It's just two teams going at it. So I don't really think it's gonna bother us, and we're ready for it.
I don't care what kind of ranking they put on them. I don't care how many games they've won in a row. I don't care about that. They've got what we want, and we've got to take it from them.
They're screaming, and they're yelling, and they're proud of masculine tradition. Fellas, St. Ignatius High School's been around a heck of a long time, with a lot of great people going through it. And now they're going to find about St. Ignatius.
This is the biggest football game Massillon Tigers have played in, maybe ever. Maybe ever.
We've got 48 minutes, and we have a destiny to go to Columbus, and it happens here, and it's here, and it's here. You play with all your heart, every bit of your heart. Let's go get him now. Let's go!
And the Wildcats played with that great Ignatius heart and a little bit of muscle, too. On their first possession, Ignatius marched 74 yards for a touchdown. The score came on a beautiful draw play by Pete Fitzpatrick on 3rd and goal from the 19. On a frigid night, the Ignatius defense was red hot up front, led by junior defensive tackle Trent Sinkowitz and that great group of linebackers. With the ball back, Joe Pickens again brought the Cats down the field. 27 yards coming on this hook and go to Mark Ruddy. Pete Fitzpatrick took the ball to the doorstep of the goal line. Then on the first play of the second period, Brian Spear barged right through to make it 13-0 Ignatius. Massillon scored in the second quarter and controlled the action. But Mark Ruddy and the rest of the Wildcat defense made certain the Tigers got no closer. The Wildcats were determined to open strongly in the second half. The special teams with Pete Fitzpatrick explode for 71 yards with the second half kickoff. A Joe Pickens to John Jakin connection puts the ball on the 10-yard line of the Tigers. And from there, Joe takes it the rest of the way himself. A perfectly executed two-point conversion follows, and it's now 21-7 Ignatius. At midfield, the defense does it again, this time a Mike Reale interception. Now it was time to go for the jugular.
The pitch back. Now they'll give it to the wide receiver, and he's going to throw the football to a wide open tight end, Jakin. 30, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Cleveland St Ignatius.
When Massillon tried its own razzle-dazzle, the plan backfired. Pete Fitzpatrick's touchdown climaxes a 21-point outburst in just over 12 minutes. The defense left its stamp on the Tigers throughout the night. And when defensive end Matt Cooney put 6 more points on the board, there was no more doubt the Wildcats were going back to Columbus. If Massillon was the symbol of football excellence in the pre-playoff era, the Wildcats' final challenge would be against the team that has won more titles than any other school since the state playoffs began, the Crusaders of Cincinnati Moeller.
Here we are, Ohio State Stadium, where we belong. You know that and I know that. You go all the way back to the last time we were here, and we left here, and you looked at the place and you said, we'll be back. We'll be back. You kept your promise, didn't you? And you came back. You're destined for greatness. You are destined for greatness. There's only one way we're going to get it, though. It's on that field. And there's a lot of crowd, and it's a big stadium. But it's a football field, fellas. It's lined. It's everything we've played all year on. You are destined to greatness. Simple statement, fellas. It's time to do it. time to do it right now. Put it all together for our perfect ball game. Do it. Let's go. Let's go!
In front of perhaps the largest crowd to ever see a Division I state title game, it didn't take the Wildcats very long to do something on the fourth play of the game.
3rd and 7, first possession of the game, backpedaling and pumping and now going long, and he has his man open, and it is Ruddy at the 45-40, and he is going to outrun the defense, hands-eye, touchdown, St. Ignatius, first possession of the game.
But Moeller had some high-voltage weapons of their own. It was going to be that kind of day in Columbus. On the next series, Brian Spear galloped 47 yards out of the fullback slot. On the very next play, Tim Kennedy finished off the drive from 11 yards out. Moeller, with its wide-open offensive set, was presenting problems for the Wildcat defense. Midway through the second quarter, the game was tied at 14. The D sacked Moeller on its next possession thanks to the efforts of Jamie Joyner and Mike Zdanek. But when an Ignatius drive short-circuited on 4th down, Moeller took in a go-ahead touchdown. Adjustments were needed as the Cats went to the locker room.
You can have a halfback over here, right?
Yes. Ruddy on the backside guard.
The outside backer's out here.
Tight end on the backside.
Yeah.
And you have to be in a...
You're outside. You got an outside backer.
Okay. All right.
Did the end run with you?
The end runs with me for like 5 yards. Anyone can go.
Okay, when you're running a 68, Pete, are you open?
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, you know.
Okay.
Man, we just got to get back and attack them. And attack them. That's it. That's it. We'll make the adjustments, and now we're going to take control of the football game. We've got to be determined. We're not going to be denied. Now, let's go. Come on. Let's go now.
The defense immediately set the tempo, forcing Moeller to punt away the football. The offense took its cue, setting the stage for another big play from Joe Pickens and Mark Ruddy. Plays abounded in the third quarter. Now it was the Wildcats' turn to take the action to Cincinnati Moeller. Late in the third quarter, Pete Fitzpatrick takes a Moeller punt deep into Crusader territory. Picks up a crucial first down. Then Joe Pickens, with a perfect pump fake, finds John Jakin near the goal line. Brian Spear then follows the Cat offensive line into the end zone, and Ignatius is back on top. The ability to rise to the occasion was a trademark throughout the year of the Wildcat defense. It was no different in the fourth quarter in Columbus. With time becoming a factor, the ground game begins to chew up yardage and take time off the clock. 3 straight Fitzpatrick carries has Moeller thinking nothing but run. They are set up for the clincher. Moeller would not go quietly, but when Brian Spear recovered the onside kick attempt, the countdown to a second straight title had begun.
Out both sides. Pickens the pass. Quick pop. He's got Buddy. Breaks the tackle 30, 20. Finds Buddy 15. Buddy 10. 5. He gets hit. Touchdown.
Winning the state championship, I don't think a day went by without thoughts about it entering your head. But one thing we have to do as a team is realize that's history now.
With the deep back. Pickens the quarterback. That's Buddy in motion. Fitzpatrick with the football, and he's in for the touchdown. Beautiful slash and run by Peter Fitzpatrick. A great work by that offensive line.
Straight in. And across the middle, and what a hit by Mike Reale.
The option play. Pickens will keep the football. He's running for the goal line, and he's in for the touchdown.
I just hope our kids can just keep going one more time. One more time. I don't think they can find anybody else for us to play after next week. Maybe I'm wrong, but I hope not. We got one more left in us, and then we'll rest.
Back to throw. Pickens lobbing it high, but his man is wide open. Touchdown, John Jacob, and that should do it.
A tremendous feeling, Alan. Right now, we're just as happy as last year. We're just as happy as last year. I never thought it could be, but you saw this game. It was a wild one. Who knows what was going to happen at the end? So it's a magnificent feeling.
To be a champion means to be successful against the challenge to be great. For the 1989 St. Ignatius Wildcats, they not only had to overcome the very best out on the field, they also had to win against their own high expectations and those of their fans. A remarkable senior class that never lost a game as a group. A current string of 29 straight victories. A first ever national championship for the city of Cleveland. And a National Coach of the Year. The 1989 St. Ignatius Wildcats. A story of pride and determination, of love and sacrifice, of fulfilling a destiny. The legend continues.